First of all, welcome everyone. Welcome to our series of webinars done by Steam for free to you on design and innovation. And today we're going to explore with you a topic on how to test and explore your disruptive ideas with CK. So my name is Olga, and I have here Frederic, who is the co-founder of Steam. And before starting, he is going to tell you a couple of words about Steam.
So hi everyone, really happy to be here with you guys. Hope you'll enjoy the webinar presented by Olga. A few words about us. What we are doing is actually proposing some methodologies and services for industries around innovation management. We are specialized in radical innovation, and this is what this webinar will be about. Our main concern is about helping big firms to manage and develop projects at early stage in innovation processes. And we mainly use one of the well-known method for radical innovation, which is CK, and usually this is what we are really known for. And today we'll talk about something else. Olga going to continue on the method we want to present you today.
Okay, and before starting, just don't forget, you can post your questions on the wall, and we're going to come back to them at the end of the session. Any questions about Steam, CK, the content that we are going to present to you. So let's start. So as you saw, the topic of our session today is how to test and explore our disruptive ideas with CK and agile methods. So imagine lots of you have seen yourself in the situation that you have already an idea that can be an idea that you would like to develop, something that you want to give a try. An idea that your company is exploring, and you or your company is exploring a particular topic, and you think that you have an idea which is rather promising and rather concrete. In this situation, you already know what will be the pain point of your idea, whether there is any gain for a particular customer or you bring something new to the table. If you're in this situation, you already have methods that are going to help you to deal with this situation in order to validate and test your market. So the methods that exist for that are basically the methods like Lean Startup that you might know. And basically the question becomes every time how to know that this idea is worth your time, money, and effort. Just before starting, so the methods that exist, and the most known one today for testing your market is the Lean Startup movement. Just to know a little bit the level of your knowledge, or basically the awareness of the offer of methods that exist, I will launch a small poll to see whether you're familiar with the approaches like Lean Startup or accelerated learning. So please answer to the question. I think you will see it on your screen. So basically, are you familiar with the approaches like Lean Startup? Have you used it before for your individual project, corporate level? I've heard about it. Okay. Just wait a couple of minutes. Okay, some of you have already used that. Okay, just wait for a second. Still moving. Okay, so great. So I think we have half of you have already actually applied the Lean Startup for your project, so at the corporate level, and half of you haven't heard about it, have heard about it, or even have no idea what is it about. So we're not going to work on the Lean Startup here. So we'll use the Lean Startup approaches like rapid prototyping or accelerated learning to see how we can go and work on hypotheses. Lean Startup is really powerful when you have a concrete idea and you know how to test it. And basically, we can apply it in these situations. But often we're confronted to a situation where you have a slide of an idea that you would like to explore, you have a promising concept, or you have a blocking point, or you have an area that your company wants to invest in. For instance, imagine your company wants to explore how blockchain can be used for your businesses, or you want to explore, autonomous vehicles, and you want to see what you can be doing in this area in the years from now. So basically, you don't have an idea yet. You can't clarify whether it will be a pain point or job or a gain in the market. It's still pretty immature. What you can do in this case? And basically, we are interested in these situations, and we know that in these cases, it's really hard to evaluate the potential of your idea right from the start. And sometimes these ideas are radically novel for your businesses, and you need to see first what is radical and how basically to approach the testing of these ideas on the market further. So what do I mean by telling radically new idea? So imagine you work for a company like Bosch, so you're basically developing the washing machines and other products, of course. If you're just improving the classical washing machines, so basically you're dealing with the improvement of performance of your offers. But imagine if you're trying to approach the functions of washing by proposing a rather new product that you see on the right, which is ultrasound. So basically you change completely the way technology looks, you change completely the business model, the value, and the technology behind. So in this case, it is totally different for your market, and it's totally different in terms of competencies that your company has to develop to explore this product. So basically, in this case, we deal with radically new idea and how to deal with them and what is actually radical. But when we look at the radical products from once they are developed, basically we see the value, we see the business in the new business models that appear. We see the new technologies that are developed, the resources and organizations that were used to explore these ideas. But ex ante, it's really hard. So imagine, for instance, the Google is developing a new operational system, Android, and basically do you think that they were able to anticipate what will be the co-design of all the applications that we use today and how the product will actually deliver the value across at the same time for different business models, how to anticipate that we're completely changing the way the car sharing works today, for instance, with the Zip car, that you can actually just use your smartphone to unlock the vehicle and use it without owning a car. At the same time, when we look at the technology, we know how much time it took Dyson to develop the new Aeroblade hand dryer. But do you think they were able to anticipate the functions of actually battery control right from the start? From the same time, if you are not a startup, but you're at the corporate level and you're looking to develop new ideas, especially radical ones, you often have to deal with what other resources required. So when you look at the SpaceX, we know how much time and effort it took them to actually achieve the first launches. So were they able to anticipate these resources from the beginning? At the same time, at the organizational level, so here you have an example of a German oil and gas company, which decided to spin off a small startup, which is called OilFox. And OilFox allows to measure using the ultrasound the level of liquid in tankers. So basically, they were facing the development of radically new idea, and they decided to create a new hybrid organization where they can explore these ideas. Why am I telling you all of this? So basically, when we deal with new radical ideas, we have different elements of uncertainties. And what happens? So basically, when you start the development of a radically new idea, which is immature, you can't start right from the beginning with what will be my business plan? What are the specifications that I'm going to achieve? And more often, we don't ask ourselves the question, so what are the resources required? And can I actually use the same organization that I have to deal with this innovation? So you are confronted with different levels of uncertainties, market, technical, and the resource and organizational ones. And you have to think, once you're starting the development of new, still immature ideas, how you're going to test the potential of these ideas across all these levels of uncertainties. So what are we going to propose to you? And basically the question becomes, I don't know where to start. There are too many uncertainties. How do I validate the potential of my ideas? Let's start with an example. So I mentioned before that, for instance, you're working for autonomous manufacturer, and all of them today are looking for autonomous vehicles. Of course, some of them are more advanced and some of them aren't. But imagine you work for autonomous vehicles. See different signs at the level of ecosystem that's fully present. That, for instance, by 2014, most of the cars will transition to electric. All of the vehicles will become fully autonomous. Moreover, sharing owning the cars. So these are the trends that we see today. We see, moreover, by prediction that, for instance, by 2020, around 100K fully autonomous vehicles will be entering the market. So you see the positive trends towards one particular technology, but you don't know yet exactly what will be the final product that you're going to develop on that market. For instance, imagine you're an employee of Renault or an external partner, a startup, and you want to see how can you facilitate the development of autonomous vehicles by, for instance, exploring the trend of fully autonomous vehicles. So imagine we don't still have an idea, we have something pretty immature, and we're going to work how to do that. So what we saw today. So we and to start to follow the underlying hypothesis, an idea that we're going to, and to do that, we're going to work on the process of acquiring new knowledge and testing this knowledge. And for doing that, we actually have a powerful method that we use. It's the CK, concept knowledge. So we're going to use the intersection of the concept and knowledge spaces to identify what is missing, what do we know already, and what are the different elements that we're going to work on. So before continuing, I just wanted to quickly check what is your level of knowledge on CK, and have you ever heard about that method in particular? So you will see appear in the pool. Have you ever used CK before? So your answers can be, yes, I'm an expert, I have coordinated projects using CK method, or basically I have participated before, I have attended some courses on CK, okay, or not really. Okay. So some of you are already experts and have coordinated projects using CK, which is good. Then most of you have attended some courses on CK. Basically, the goal of this webinar is not to present you CK in its full potential. So for that, we have additional webinars, and we also have lots of content, and we do some other trainings on CK method in particular. So the goal here is to see how CK can be applied to explore your ideas and to see what are the underlying hypotheses and how we're going to test the learning process to identify and validate your idea. And to do that, we're going to use both CK method, and we're going to use the principles of a lean startup at the same time. So CK for the part of how to deal with the systematic learning, how to organize the pivoting of your solution in a systematic way. So for instance, how to anticipate what will be the future alternatives and how to prepare for the fact that some of your initial assumptions will fail. At the same time, we're going to see how to deal with hypotheses and questions raised on a specific aspect of your idea, and how to include also resource and organizational uncertainty, elements that often we forget once we deal with exploring new technologies and new markets. And at the same time, we will use the principles of a lean startup for its agile and iterative approach, and to see how can we actually use the principles of accelerated learning to do that. So let's start. So how are we going to do that? So basically, we will stick with our idea of you are working for autonomous manufacturer, Renault, and we're going to explore how to explore the concept of fully autonomous vehicle. So the first step that you're going to do is to see, okay, you don't have an idea yet, but you do have some preliminary knowledge elements. So you're going to deep dive to explore your solution using the concept in detail. How does it work? So basically, we will take all the facets of your concept and we're going to see what are the elements to work on. So first of all, what is it for? How is it used? How is it sold? What does it interact with? And how does it work? So basically, you saw before that we identified together different elements of uncertainties. So we're going to use them to see what do we know already. So in terms of usage, so we are going to explore the car that can, for instance, drive without being 100% attentive or can commute on a traditional road. How is it going to be used? So basically, in terms of usage, we still will have a car owner who needs to move from one place to another. In terms of business model, sold as in terms of interaction with your ecosystem. So what do we need in terms of infrastructure, passengers or not? And how does it going to be working? So here we explore different elements that belong to different types of uncertainties and elements that we know. There will be lots of them that we don't know yet, and we're going to explore how to deal with them. So how does it help us? So here we will take the CK and we'll see, okay, in terms of identity of my initial concept, what do I have? So we're going to describe it by choosing each time one element to describe what you know already in terms of your autonomous vehicle. Once you identify that your autonomous vehicle, for instance, is a vehicle that drives without being 100% attentive within unlimited area that can be sold as an individual product, you're going to see what are the different knowledge elements you know that will help you to clarify how to go further on that solutions. For instance, if we're talking about a computer that controls the trajectory of a vehicle, you will have to bring knowledge on personal diaries, how to manage the trajectories, etc. So let's take one example. For instance, if we're dealing with one of the properties of business models that we're still dealing with a vehicle that is sold as an individual product. So what do? So you will try to see what are the different alternatives that you can imagine right from the start. Of course, it's pretty easy. If we're talking about selling as an individual product, we can also give it for free. Since we're giving it for free, what are the business models that will allow you to actually explore and have new values? So basically new business models as pay as you use or freemium apps, and you're going to use that knowledge to identify the sub-concepts of your solution. So you can imagine a vehicle which will be using a freemium business model, for instance. And we're going to do it at each level of the description of your concept, at the level of value, usage, a business model, technology, and even at the elements of organization a little bit later. So the goal here is to see everything that you know and you can map on your concept right from the start. So basically what you will see is the whole map at the end of everything that you know at this particular moment. And why do we need it? And how we're going to use it? Once we map all the knowledge that we have, we will need to see what are our underlying assumptions. So basically everything that we put on the map right from the start is something that can be changed. We will have to identify all these uncertainties and to see what are the most critical ones. You have to remember, you won't be able to explore everything. So you need to see what are at each level the elements that will be changing and the elements that you will need to explore. So for instance, if we're dealing with our autonomous vehicle here, let's imagine, so our first assumption was that the autonomous vehicle will be driven will allow drivers not to be 100% attentive. And what if the driver accepts to delegate 100% attention? So for us, it appears that something that we will need to verify. And at the same time, for instance, we will need to verify that the car will be able to want to go wherever it goes. So basically the car can decide where to go at the same time. So for instance, in my case, I identified these two elements as the most critical uncertainties, and I will keep the other elements to be classical. Why do I need to do that? So once I decided that I have these uncertainties. I need to see how I'm going to test them to learn what are the elements that can help me to advance on my concept at the minimal cost. So your idea is not to launch big market studies on the usage of autonomous vehicle at this particular moment, but to see, so what will be the minimal viable test that I'm going to launch to learn, not necessarily to validate, because we are still at the level which is really immature, but basically how to test at the low cost. For instance, we saw before that we have chosen two different uncertainties. So first of all, do the drivers accept to delegate 100% of control of their vehicles? And the second one, the car decides to go wherever it wants. So let's just deal with the first one for the example of the webinar. So if we are going to talk about the drivers who delegate 100% of their attention, so we need to see, and we're trying to see what are the most critical questions to deal with. So the first one, for instance, will be, what are the most difficult areas for the drivers today? Will they actually accept to delegate 100% of their attention all the time? In which conditions? And then, are they willing to pay more for these kind of solutions in future? Based on that, we're going to design our tests. So for instance, in my case, it will be talking to our various drivers today to see what are the most difficult areas to drive today, and present, for instance, a fake offer for autonomous cars just to see whether they're interested to have something that allows them to control, to have less control of the vehicles during the most difficult driving times or not. So for instance, my validation criteria will be talking to at least 20 drivers and having at least 10 of them, for instance, to accept that they're looking for something interesting, and also to identify at least one or two most difficult areas to focus on. For instance, you organize the test, and imagine for a couple of weeks to do that, and learn that first, the most time consuming is parking. So it's really difficult. You waste your time, you need to find the car. So parking appears to be quite hard. And also the drivers are okay to leave control during parking, but not necessarily during 100% of their time of traveling. So these are your learnings, how to do that, how to process them, and what do you actually do with them. Basically, there are three different ways. So, or you actually validate your hypothesis, so you stick to your concept and you need to continue further. Second, you need to pivot. So basically, some of the properties are changing, but some of them you're actually keeping. So how to use this learning to go further, and then you can discard the whole concept at the same time, and to see, thanks to the alternatives that you identified before, what would be their second step on your offers. The most important part here is to process all the learnings and not the elements that you're actually learning and the conditions in which you're learning that. So for instance, we every time go to CK and we process the elements that we learn in the knowledge space, and we see whether we validated certain hypotheses or not in the concept space. So for instance, we saw here that parking appears to be a major pain point. So we are going to validate the part where we're trying to focus on the most difficult areas, but at the same time, for instance, we will have to unvalidate our vehicle going whenever it wants. Or that, what are the next steps? We need to see what are the solutions that exist already to facilitate parking. So, and for instance, you have several articles and to talk to different car manufacturers or your partners. So what are the parking facilitation solutions that exist, and basically how you're going to use them. So for instance, imagine you did this test, you identify that basically there are autonomous exist, and pretty much they're really expensive today. So basically, integrated parking systems are too complex and are really rarely used. So for instance, your learning is, yes, solutions exist today, but what here cars that have this, because your car will be parked 90% of the time, and the solution to do parking is rarely used. So what if we don't equip the car with a solution which is integrated, but we basically develop a new autonomous solution which will spend 98% of the time parking cars. So imagine you identify these types of partition thanks to your reasoning and the learning with CK. And instead of developing a particular solution, you are actually deciding to develop a robot that is going to deal with your cars on the parking lots. And this solution actually exists. So I don't know whether you've heard about that, but Stanley Robotics, which is a French company, they developed a couple of years ago an outdoor valet robot, which is called Stan. And Stan is an autonomous vehicle, which is not integrated in your car and ensures parking for you. So basically, once you arrive at the parking, you just leave your car and you take it back once you are back to, and you need it back. So basically, the Stan will ensure parking for you. It manages the parking 100% automatically. And this year, they also launched a partnership with the different airports in Paris to explore this solution. So you see here, we pivot until find our product market fit. And product market fit is often really different from what we had at the beginning. And what do we learn with this example here? So basically, we see that if we are dealing with the immature ideas, so the ideas where pain points are not really clear, your gains and the particular advantage that you're bringing is still needed to be explored and created and validated at the same time, it's important not to start right from the beginning with just testing your market, but to see first what is the potential of your idea, what is the missing knowledge, and basically define your hypothesis in a systematic way to see whether you're going in the right direction or not. This will allow you to create a better concept, a better idea, and to see how to manage learnings in parallel, to explore and test all the phases of your concept at the same time. So the advantage is that you can explore systematic learning with agile approaches at the same time. So here is Stan. We are going to start collecting your questions. And before doing that, we're going to present as well how this approach of validating and testing your markets is actually incorporated into the whole offer of STEAM. So Fred is back.
I'm here. Okay, a few words just to present you how we deal with all these elements for companies. So what we try to do this past months is split our offer into a separate parts so that it can be really clear and answering needs for companies. So what we have is actually 3 steps from A to C. I'll talk about the O afterwards. So let's start with the A phase. The A phase is actually to start from a blank sheet of paper, like a blank area, where we want to structure the exploration by saying these are the new playgrounds that you should dig into and the knowledge that is missing to get into this playground. So if we, for example, get back to the autonomous car, that would be saying for exploring the subject of autonomous car that is really wide, we would have a playground that could be autonomy for car parks, for example. And autonomy for car parks would be something that is still a bit wide, but more focused with different parameter and performance criteria. And into this perimeter, you can understand that you still don't have any precise and detailed solution, but just an area that you should dig into. And this is why we have a second step, which is called CK design, where we actually dig into this area, looking at the expertise that we want to use for having really precise and detailed solutions. For example, saying, okay, for this area, we could, for example, add a new function inside the car so that when the car enters a car park, it's actually guided autonomously and so on. Still, when you have this new solution in hand, you can understand that this solution is still really uncertain. And this is where we get to the presentation of today, what Olga presented regarding the virtual startup, which is how the name that we gave to this approach, where we actually use techniques of quickly having some reduction of uncertainties and using our way of using CK so that we can make sure that we are really exploring and dealing with the uncertainties in a structured way. So we have these 3 steps that enable us to start from a blank area, which is really wide and not well structured, and that usually is explored really randomly, with a really structured way to go from playgrounds to solution to test to decrease the uncertainties that you can have. And what we usually do is actually starting on a subject like an autonomous car with a diagnosis where we can actually assess what are the needs of a company, because the needs could be at each and every level, started from A to C. You could, for example, say, okay, no, I already have a solution, and the solution is really precise in my head, but what I'm missing here is actually tests to decrease the uncertainties. And we would go for C with you guys. Or the opposite could be true as well. We could say, okay, the problem is that I don't know how to structure my area, so we would start with A and so on. So this is how we structure the approach. And the thing is that what we also have is really grounded experimentation of this step with really well-known companies, as you can see on the slide, like Suez, Danone for CK exploration, or La Poste, CK design. We have been working with Safran, Thales, Technip, and so on. And on virtual startup, we work with many companies as well, like Danone, Schneider Electric, and so on and so on. So this is some elements that we wanted to share with you. And we have a small poll again to see if you guys are familiar with these approaches or not within your company.
Or whether which part of the offer would be the most relevant for you if you would need to start the exploration of CK. Okay. The answer can be, if you answer nothing, it means that nothing is relevant. We forgot to add the negative answer.
So we give you a little bit of time to answer this, and I'm gonna give you the floor.
Yeah, and please, if you have any questions, just start to post them within the chat. So we're here to interact with you. And if you have any question on the virtual startup, on Steam, on the CK, just let's use the 20 minutes that are left to answer to any of them. Okay, so I think that designing innovative solutions is more interesting in terms of so we don't have any
pretty much what we had to share today. So feel free to ask questions. We will answer using the microphone here, and you can ask your question using the chat only. You actually can't talk to us because it would be a mess, of course.
Okay, we have the first question on, is it possible to have the slides for later reference? Yes, Victor, we are sending the slides just after the...
the ones who had problems with the sun regarding the connection maybe here on our side. Sorry.
Okay. And we have another question from Ismail. Do you think about doing a meetup workshop in Paris to really test the CK method? Well, we do have trainings already on CK. Basically, it's 2 days trainings, which are just one company only, or they're more for participants coming from different companies, where basically we spend 2 days together to explore the full potential of the CK. So if you're interested, we can send you the info about the next training. I think it's in March. Otherwise, sometimes we do afterworks, we do a summer institute on how to fit. So have any questions on? I think we are good. Okay, the sound dropped. Okay, we're really sorry. It's the first time that we have the problem with the sound, so we will need to figure out why.
Okay, so what we said is that we already have some trainings and some afterworks so that people can get in touch with CK, and we did not organize any meetups yet, but we said, Ismail, that thanks for your, maybe we'll think about organizing a meetup on CK.
Yeah. We have one question. You want to take? From Bruno.
Okay, Bruno, thanks for the question. It's a question that actually pops up a lot. What is the difference and when CK shooted than design thinking? Actually, the methods are pretty much different. Design thinking is really user-centered, and what you explore in knowledge part really are related to the use, the usage, or some elements surrounding the user. So the way you will be transforming your object or your subject will be really related to this. This is the first point. So when you have an object that is targeting some users that you really have in mind, and that is something that is really related to the use of the object or anything, then design thinking can be well suited. On the other side, CK is more designed to explore and structure radical innovation, where what you want to have at the end of the exploration is something that is more that is actually radically different from what you had at the beginning. And CK was really designed for that, while design thinking was really designed to design something that is well suited for the user. And when you read books actually on both methodology, you can see that the approach are really different in this way. The first one, CK, is more to go for something that is really disruptive, and the second one is something that is really well adapted for the users. So, for example, if you explore a new technology for, I don't know, a rocket, for example, it's maybe more interesting to explore the potential of CK. Or if you want to explore the future of the bank, what we are doing right now with Société Générale, then CK is more adapted. If you want to find something that is really interesting for an agency in the bank, then design thinking can be more adapted, I would say.
Okay. So we have a small question from Victor. Any chance to have it in Lyon? Well, why not?
Yeah, why not? We don't know yet, but we have been giving some courses in Lyon, actually, Victor, in the business school called l'EM Lyon, and in Central Lyon, the engineering school, in some masters. So we are pretty much used to come to Lyon to teach CK there. So if we organize a meetup there, then you'll be the first one to know about it.
Okay, so I think we have no further questions. In this case, we will just thank you for attending this webinar. Once again, we are really sorry about the difficulties that you experienced with the connection and the sound. So we will send you the slides, and if you have any questions on how to use CK to test and explore your ideas, or how to design your innovative solutions with CK, you know where to find us.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.